From Chicago's CAN TV, this is Chicago Newsroom.
Well, hi there, and welcome to Chicago Newsroom here on CAN TV. We're recording our program today on Thursday, the 7th of March, and it's a very important day in Chicago. We have a bulletin just in. I want you to memorize these these document numbers. Document 02018-6029 and 6030. You know what those are? Those are the two halves of Lincoln Yards, and they're going up today before the City Council's Planning Committee. And I'm going to make a prediction. I'm just straight out going to make a prediction right now. They're going to pass. Next week you come back here, you'll see I was right. I was a visionary. I saw that. Anyway, we're still finding ways to be surprised by the slowly trickling in results of the February 26th election, aren't we? There's the fact that it wasn't such a low participation election after all that. It was over 35%, which is higher than the first round back in 2015. And there's the fact that a bunch of aldermen, including some that were considered pretty safe, ended up in razor-thin runoffs. At least a couple were so close that we're still waiting for the last few mail-in ballots to determine if they're going to have to run off or not. And they're getting tight, you know what I mean? It's the election's in a couple of weeks. But to me, the most remarkable statistic is the candidate who finished with wins in the largest number of wards in Chicago, 13 to be exact, and he didn't make the runoffs. Willie Wilson got 10.7% of the vote, almost exactly the same as the 11% share he got last time, but in a way bigger field. So today, with just a couple of weeks left before the final election, Willie Wilson may not be the mayor, but he's a major power broker in this town right now. And his all-important endorsement is going to be announced Friday, as we're recording this Friday at 1:30. And I'm honored to have Willie Wilson back with us today. Dr. Wilson,
all right.
Welcome back. It's a pleasure to have you back here on Chicago Newsroom. As I mentioned, it's a big day for Sterling Bay, whether you like it or not, it's coming. But I would really like to begin with aldermanic endorsements. Now, you're going to make your mayoral endorsement tomorrow at 1 o'clock as we sit here, but you've already made a bunch of aldermanic endorsements. So I'd like to run through them if we could. Can we? First of all, there are 7 of them. 2 of them are incumbents that you're endorsing. You're saying they should get reelected. 1 of them is an open seat, but 4 of them, you're on the side of the challenger to the sitting alderman. So let's go through those. Leslie Hairston, this is a big one in the 5th Ward. Leslie Hairston is, of course, Hyde Park alderman, and the Obama Center is big in her thing. And you're going with Will Calloway. Why is that?
He's not part of the machine that got us in this situation. He's not bought. You know, he's not controlled by the machine. He's young, new generation. Is their future, and I want to see the young people do well.
And so, you know, that's an interesting thing. Just as a side note, that as a guy who's spent his whole life in business, you have to have a real appreciation for generation change, don't you? You have to understand that you can't just always go back to us old guys for everything.
That's right. That's right. We had to get aside. Yeah, we had our turn, and now let's help somebody else get their turn, but do it in a way that the community come first. Yeah.
Now, of course, you say that Leslie Hairston, you're calling her machine. What did she do that you find so objectionable down there in Hyde Park and that area?
Well, you know, she had more than Hyde Park, but I mean, she pretty much vote with the Ron Emanuel, you know, Madigan, etc. That have not been good for Chicago. You know, economic development, schools, grant, red light cameras. You know, people cars get boot. You know, bicycles, tickets. And so there's a community hurry. Taxes. You know.
What about the Obama Center? I don't think we talked about that last time. How do you feel about that? Do you think it's okay going into the park, and what about community benefits and all that? How do you feel about those things?
I support, as a business person, economic development brings into the community. But I believe that you have to yield to the community, give them some of the, as you said, slice of the pie from an economic, social kind of a situation. Don't leave us out. You know, I think we got to adhere to that and then do it right. If the community don't want it, then we shouldn't have it.
So I think you're saying then that you like the idea of these community benefits benefits agreements. You think that's a good idea?
I think it's a good idea. All too often, and to particularly the African American community, we've been left out.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and so we suffer a lot, and so I'm for get the agreement.
Why do you think Barack Obama's been so against it?
I don't know. I think that you know, different era. You know, a lot of people is in office tied to so many different strings. You know, when you get into political, sometimes you have to do favor to get the favor. You know, and so perhaps that may be it. I don't know, but he used to be a neighborhood organizer, and so I mean, if anybody going to stand it, I would think it would be him.
Because he would have been out there yelling and screaming. Right?
Right.
Okay, so Rafael Yanez versus Ray Lopez in the 15th Ward. You're apparently not happy with Ray Lopez either.
No, I don't have with him at all. You know, he is the one that was signing the resolution when I was passing out the money to have me locked up for 7 years.
I didn't remember that.
Well, you do, I'm sure want him out. For personal reasons.
You got a personal thing here, yeah, I see, okay. And what about Rafael Yanez? Do you know much about him? You think Rafael is a good guy?
I don't know. See, I kind of figure like this here. The ones that are tied to the machine, the people want something different and new and fresh. You know, they tired of the same old. As you know, when I was running, I was coming up with, you know, new ideas. Don't raise taxes on us. You know, get rid of red light cameras and things of that nature. Give a grant, trade in school, create the opportunity so we can get down to violence. You know, and both those people that's tied to the old machine, they pretty much bought up. But and you cannot change them. And even if they wanted to change, they too tied up to those particular places. So that's why I put all my money. That's why I didn't mess with nobody's money. I used my own.
Just use your own money. Well, of course, you know, some of us can't do that, but you can. So congratulations to you. Stephanie Coleman versus Tony Folks over in the 16th Ward. You're going with Stephanie Coleman, the challenger. She's a nice young lady. I've been knowing Stephanie Coleman a long time. I know her father. I know her mother. Her mother was the Alderman. Right. But she used to work for me also. Oh, she did? She worked for you? A long time ago, she used to work for me. Okay, so she's got that endorsement locked up then. We know that. But outside of that, she's a nice person. You need some fresh. You need somebody fresh? Need some young ideas. That's the 16th Ward we're talking about there. So I believe so. That's a little bit of Englewood there. Englewood, right. And finally, in this category, we've got Millie Santiago up in the 31st, who as I recall it, she was a reporter, a TV reporter for Telemundo or one of the Spanish language things. And she's been an alderman for just one term. She's only been in there for 4 years. But you're going with Felix Cardona. And tell us about that. Well, again, it's based on kind of like new blood, you know, per se, not tied to Ron Emanuel. Which you think Millie Santiago was? Not really, but see, I think you can have a certain amount of independent, and we're talking to them. But by the way, next week we're gonna bring another 7 on. Oh, are you? You still got more then? Yeah, it was total 14 in the runoff. Oh, I see. Okay, but so you're gonna have something to say about all of them. Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, we'll follow up on that. Now, but you are endorsing 2 incumbents. You're endorsing Howard Brookins in 21. Why is that? Well, the other 2 is that we talked to him. You know, we talked to some people in the community. And another thing is too is that if they can be redeemed. Oh, I call it in the church, you know, reborn again. Redemption. Right, redemption, right. And you can put those one with the new people and they can learn together. Kind of mix it up a little bit, provided if they've been
willing to do that, and he is definitely willing to do that.
But I mean, I would consider by the way you're defining him, I would consider Brookins to be one of the older machine type people, right?
He's right, absolutely right.
But you're going to give him a second chance.
We will do this in a second chance because now it's a different playing field, and there's a different strategy. You know, the other time is that, look, right now, one probably could say, I can say that I represent the African American community by mere fact of the vote, all right?
That's an interesting claim. I saw you make that yesterday, that you can represent the African American community because you got lots of votes virtually all the way across the black community.
Absolutely right, and I do represent that community, and I'm going to exercise that to those favor. I'm going to be involved into the political decision, mayoral, as well as the state, as well as national. When them come through, we got to make sure we're being treated fairly. You know, I'm going to represent that. I'm going to take that on.
I'm wandering out into somewhere where I don't feel very safe here, but I think I saw that you actually got more African American, or at least let's be careful. You got more votes in the African American community than either Lightfoot or Preckwinkle.
That's correct.
You
Absolutely
did.
right.
Yeah, yeah. So that's how you make your claim. I was really curious about Ariel Riboyeras. He's a Latino alderman up in the 30th ward, and you endorsed him over Jess Gutierrez.
Well, we have some allies in the Latino community. They helped me with the mayoral. If you look at the map.
I see, okay.
If you look at that map, we got quite a few people out of there too.
You did, yeah.
So we have to say, okay, people supported me. They want changes, and we accepted them in, like we're going to do the next 7.
So that's a whatever you want to call it, a quid pro quo. That's a you help me, I'll help you.
Well, but then again too, they not necessarily. Know him real personally or nothing like that.
Yeah.
But I explained to all of them, everybody know, I'm not bought, I'm for the community. Are you willing to do this? We know you gotta make a living, but don't go in there and compromise the community for your own personal use, your personal gain. I would never get off those principles. And if somebody violates those principles, you know, and the community suffer because of it, then they're going to have to answer for it. I'm going to do within my law, voting situation, that we'll do what we have to do to try and get people in that going to serve the community.
His opponent is Jess Gutierrez, who is, I believe, Louis Gutierrez's daughter, right?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
So you decided that you wanted to go with Riboyeras instead of.
Yeah. Well,
that's not any kind of personal issue.
No.
Okay. No. All right, and let's see, what else do we? Oh yeah, well of course we've got the 20th ward, that mess where Willie Cochran, of course, has admitted to bribery and he's about to go off. So we've got a lot of people in there, and you have chosen Nicole Johnson.
Yeah, nice young lady, very nice young lady, very sharp, personal, that fit in, young, you know. It's their future, you know. We'll have room and everything to make sure that they can be one that the community is going to be proud of. And I got that feel from me. I had a chance to talk to them.
Well, the 20th ward is one of the wards that most needs help in Chicago. That's for sure. And it's had real problems with its leadership over the years. So, okay, so that takes care of that. Oh, wait a minute. What about the treasurer race? Are you going to endorse that?
Yeah, I have endorsed Ms. Melissa.
Oh, you did. Okay.
I did
Melissa
endorse her, right?
Conyers-Irvin.
Yeah.
So you're okay. So that I didn't know if you had one or not.
Yeah, we did endorse her.
So you are, as we've said, a politician, a businessman, and a philanthropist. And one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about today is your philanthropy, because you have given. You're famous for handing out money to people, but it's much more than that, because you've given large chunks of money to very important causes. And I was really I just spent some time yesterday just kind of hanging out, lurking on your Facebook pages and stuff and watching things. And I watched this just fascinating group thing that you did. You're calling it the collaboration of concerned Chicago voters and citizens. You had a 1-hour meeting, and like just like the business guys, like we're going to do 1 hour. We're going to cut it off at 1 hour. But you were strong-arming people. I mean, you were just pushing people into joining committees and everything else. And I'm not exactly sure what was going on. What is that group going to do? You have lots of committees, and I guess they're going to like monitor city council or something. What's the point?
Well, the same way City Hall is set up, we're setting up ours the same way.
Yeah.
So that anybody got to go on City Hall day, passing bills, et cetera, and those committees. They ought to be into those particular open public meeting and bring it back to the community.
So they will be reporting back to the community. You're almost setting up like a kind of a news bureau or something.
Exactly right. It's the same way like business. You know, we're in business, and let's say I do business with, let's say I'm owning McDonald's Corporation, for example. Well, all our customers around the world, we have to have meetings, zone, and business and those particular things around the world in order to know what's going on and keep up. So those guys and ladies are going to be reporting back to the executive board, you know, which we're setting up. We're still in the process of doing that. That was the first night. We meet again, I believe, next week, you know. And
I know, you meet every Monday night.
There you go, right?
At I think 7 o'clock sharp, and it's for 1 hour, and you've got to be here.
Right, without a doubt. And I ain't gonna try to keep it private because you know, you don't know who everybody's in there gonna tell everybody anyway.
Right.
You know, so the community get involved and see what happened. And far as I'm concerned, the community need to be informed, and community don't need to be left out. And the community going to say, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's the action we're taking. Here's what's what, and then we're going to follow through it. We're going to get with the alderman. And if it's not in our best interest, the community best interest, then we're going to try to block it and say, don't do this unless you make sure we're included. If you got $100 and this community represents this, give us $25 out of that, you know, and let's find ways of making it work so the ballot can get down and put the empowerment within the community, job and contracts.
It's very interesting. You know, you, as we mentioned before, you got 60,000 votes. So you have some power in this town right now. If you can deliver those votes to either Preckwinkle or Lightfoot.
Yeah, correct.
And of course, that's in itself a question. But you're going to have this big announcement tomorrow, and I guess you've been talking. I see that you spoke for about an hour and a half with Tony Preckwinkle, and I think about another 4 hours with Lori Lightfoot. And I assume you've made your decision. You've drawn your conclusion that you're going to announce already. Or are you still thinking? We're
going to announce tomorrow at 1:30. We meet again today with Lori Lightfoot today. Again.
Oh, again? Okay.
Right. I've been. The vote is just not online. A few days ago, I was with 200, 300, 500 ministers. You know, we're dealing with this situation in terms of gay and lesbians question. Right. Believe me, I had an earful on all of that.
I'll bet you did.
And I said before, I used to be the same way. Well, no doubt about it. And
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is something that I really was hoping to talk with you about today, because I heard you talking about this. I've heard you a couple of times saying that you've gone through a kind of a metamorphosis, a transition or something yourself on this. And I want to let's tell our audience about this. What happened with you?
Well, you know, we as Christians believe in the scripture, and we basically try to do the things according to the scripture the best that we can do, right? And that's one that really like, in the mind against it, just like kind of like if you're going to change religion, somebody's going to try to change your religion, right? So we're pretty dumbfounded against that. We talk about it, and we talk about it in the pulpit and everything else. But I found that through my coming up through life that the scripture said that we shall not judge, and I was judging, you know, right? And I believed in that, you know, sin is sin. You know, regardless of what it is, it's saying it's sin. And so, but in the scripture as it relates to gays and lesbians, it particularly says abomination. You know, man should not go with man. Right. You know, women should not go with women. And so we believe that, all right? But what a person do with their own life is between themselves and Christ. So my thing is, let's focus on the economic, social and economic issue. You know, whoever doing what they're doing, deal with it themselves. But I was
let them be judged by God rather than by us.
Us, right? So I realized that, and so and look, I have gay and lesbian in my orchestra, my band.
Yeah.
I got them work for me, you know. But I always spoke openly about it. When I speak every Sunday in a church, and I used to be one of the leading ones to say the same thing. You know, married between a man and wife, I wouldn't come off it. All right. Now that don't say my belief have changed. Yeah. Right. It just say I'm not gonna be the one to judge, but I'm gonna treat you like a human being.
So that's really interesting. So you haven't changed your belief, but you've agreed that you can accommodate people who are good people who are in your life who see things differently.
That's absolutely right. Yeah. That's absolutely right.
But your beliefs are the same.
My beliefs are the same according to the scripture, and me personally. Just like their beliefs are the same. Right? But we shouldn't influence and invade in one another's belief and condemn one another as related to trying to make a living.
So you've been going around having political discussions with ministers in your community, and the topic has gotten religious, and this gay lesbian thing has come up?
We've been doing it. Yes. Yeah, that's been occupying a lot of my time. But what I did this day too, I also tell them too, if we're going to condemn gay and lesbian act, what about the Catholic and going with the young men and young ladies in the church, the poke? They haven't said anything. What about the African American minister, the white minister, who violating our young men and young ladies? So what's the difference? You know, we got to condemn that act. You know, and everything to be judged, but we can't talk about this over here without talking about this over here.
Right. And I mean, I would, from my own perspective, I would say, and also, those other people are not only committing crimes against God and the church, they're committing crimes in the civil world too. I mean, they're committing rape.
No doubt about it.
Yeah. Huh? So we're all navigating this weirdness, aren't we? We're all trying to figure out what can be right and what can be wrong.
Well, I'm glad the Lord ain't got me judging.
Well, yeah, I think we all share that.
I'm gonna get back in my lane.
Get back in your lane. So I mean, I didn't bring you here today to try to scoop yourself on your press conference tomorrow. Trust me, I'm not doing that. But it's interesting to me that you're spending a lot of time talking with people about gay and lesbian issues, and you don't have to do that with Tony Preckwinkle. You only have to do it with one of the candidates.
Well, because I want an even playing field. I don't want one judge just because of their gender. But let's judge, as Harold Davis always said, let's judge the agenda.
All right, yeah, right. I like that. I heard you say that the other day. Right. Instead of judging the gender, let's judge the agenda. Yeah. You've been kind of like my favorite TV show for the last couple of days. But I mean, I think that is a really important point, is trying to level the playing field. But nevertheless, the fact is that you're spending a lot more time leveling the playing field for Tony Preckwinkle, for Lori Lightfoot.
Because here's his deal. Now, the Lori is leading in the survey.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
But I've had an ear for it as related to Tony Preckwinkle as well.
When you go and talk to people, this stuff comes up.
Right. And so we've been balancing out both, because I want to make a good informed decision to the people, because I'm not going to lose the trust of the African American community. Ain't no way I would put that at risk.
Yeah, it would be. It seems like that would be pretty hard to do at this point.
So I'm going to be open and honest and put everything out there. I'm going to communicate with them. We got huge database now from around the country, even overseas, starting to pick up people, you know. And so we're going to, but we want to be fair with it. I told Tony Preckwinkle yesterday. I talked to her, I think 2 times yesterday, or maybe 3 times. People a couple of times too. And I said, well, look, I'll be open honest with you. Laura Lightfoot is leading in my polls and analysis that I have with the time that I have. She's leading right now. I said, I'm not going to try to say anything different to you guys or anything. I'm mutual. My interest is only in making sure our community get what it's supposed to get. And I've been already told that.
Now, if you just overlaid the maps and looked at the maps of the precincts that you won, who would be more likely to be number 2? Would it have been Lightfoot or Preckwinkle?
Preckwinkle.
Preckwinkle got more number 2 votes in wherever you won.
Right.
Okay. All right.
And that pretty much was that. Preckwinkle had the sugar tax, the property taxes, all those things, and then you look at the professional services within the county that she have. I don't think it's not one major contractor that owns a piece of business, and with the county, it's very low in terms of I can't even call it economic equality, contracting job.
I'm not quite sure I understood what you just said. So you're saying that the people who have contracts in the county are not
minority.
They're okay. So they're not distributed
equally.
Okay, they're not equally distributed with minorities.
Percentage-wise.
Yeah.
You know.
Now, I mean, I remember when you were on our show before, and I watched your campaign, and you have said repeatedly, no new taxes, period.
Right.
And I mean, that includes everything. You don't want anything if it's new taxes.
No taxes.
But you also say, and I'm not redoing the election here, but you also have said that you want all the pensions paid. The people who deserve them should get them.
Absolutely.
You want much more money for schools and all the rest of that. So do both of them. They say the same thing. So, but the question is, how can you support someone who you know is going to go in there and raise taxes? I mean, I'll guarantee you, I'll give you my other guarantee on this, Dr. Willie Wilson. Within 6 months of either of them being mayor, they're going to be pushing for new taxes.
You know what, they I don't know, probably will, but we already know what one have already done.
Yeah.
All right. If I got 2 trains coming, all right, and both of them is operating the train, but it start from turning point, and I know that one person on that train gonna run over me because he ran over me 1,000 times, okay? The other one I might convince not to run over me, all right? I'm gonna take my chances there, all right?
That makes you an optimist.
Right. But I would never go against the community. I would never ever go against the community. But if they say to go this way, go this way. Like last time when Chewy ran, I endorsed him. But in reality, if it was left up to me, even though much as I disliked it, the Ron Emanuel in terms of some of the things that he done, I would have probably went that way.
You would have voted for Ron.
Yeah, but the community said go with this, and that, and I didn't like the things that the mayor had done himself. But if you put the two together, Chewy was just not there. I mean, here's why. Chewy was controlled by the union. And not saying the other person wasn't either, but look, you got to be strong in it off and this and that. But I supported him. You know.
Well, see, this is the interesting thing that happens when you get into politics, right? Nobody's pure. We're all human beings, and we're not pure. And the situations that we face are not pure. They all have to make incredibly difficult decisions, and they lose people along the way.
But see, look, I understand politics a little bit, but look, you do not lose your integrity and your principle. Yeah. Do politics, but never lose your integrity and your principle.
So when you talk to the people in your community who you represent, and I'll agree with you, you represent a lot of people. What do you have that transfers to them? Why would they believe you and maybe switch their vote to the one that you want?
Well, because they believe me, because by mere fact of that they voted for me, because of honest, I haven't taken nothing I've always give. I've sacrificed stuff for them. And so there's nothing for me to gain personally, you know, and I will continue to live my life that way. I'm 70 years old now, I'm not gonna change now.
Me too. Me neither. So we really are down to just a few minutes, but I really wanted to talk to you today about. It starts with the conversation about how you've given a lot of money to people who are about to lose their house.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's so much of a bigger discussion than that. It's not just handing a couple of bucks to somebody who's about to lose their house. It's the whole system. Yeah. It's the whole rotten system.
Agree.
And the Tribune did that brilliant series last year where they showed how the property tax system in Cook County was so corrupt that the people who were paying the highest tax rates were these very people in your community that you represent. And the people who were paying the lowest tax rates were Donald Trump and folks like that who own big towers downtown. So talk about that.
who were the people who raised the tax and gave somebody an award in the assessment office? Was Preckwinkle did that, right? And but the neighborhood that I represent, right, suffer the most, right? The wealthy, for example, all right. I don't want to punish the wealthy for they being successful, because they create more jobs. You know, otherwise they go to Arkansas, Tennessee, and Indiana, all right, and the job goes there with them. Yeah. We can be competitive. We can beat all those guys. We're the Midwest. We're Chicago. Yeah. It's about managing the budget. It's, you know, that's all it is. It's by getting rid of the corruption.
Well, you know, one of the problems with a show like this is that we're always up against the clock. We've always got another, you know, we always get a couple of minutes. Well, it's kind of like being in one of your sessions, like, no, 5 more minutes.
That's why you have to say, that's it.
That's right, you got to stay on the clock.
That's it, you know.
But, you know, the other thing about all of this is there's another entire conversation about affordable housing and how we don't have enough of it, and gentrification is taking away what we have. And I want you to tell me, as a guy who's cut business deals and done business before, why can't private developers build housing that is honestly affordable in Chicago? Why can't that be done?
I think you have
Why can't you take one of these like completely destroyed communities where there's almost no buildings standing and build a whole new neighborhood? Why can't that be done?
I think you got to give the incentive. You got to give the tax breaks. But here's the thing: all those buildings there in the particularly the black community, and in the brown community also, they don't have the necessary capital. No money is put in that. Like Ron right now is setting on hundreds of millions of dollars, supposed to go for affordable houses. Well, he said that he'd keep it without putting it where it's supposed to go to. That's a big problem, right? But if you put those dollars in there, we can deal with that together, but also let the people in the community build those homes that create economic empowerment in that, and put the grant over here that they can do it with. Right? Then look, that would take care of itself. You're going to keep down more crime in those communities. You ain't going to have to pay for a lot of people robbing people, breaking in people's homes, because you'll pay more than that in jail and hiring more police officers. You know, it's the other way around, all right?
See, this is what absolutely befuddles me. I mean, I live in a wood frame bungalow that was built in 1922. And I'm sure that whoever bought that house the first time around probably bought it for $1,000 or less, right? And as a matter of fact, it turns out I was the second owner of that house in like 1988. So these blocks were all built at the same time, and they were all built very, very cheaply. And the houses are not great. They're frankly they're kind of you know, weak, but they're doing their job. But this is what I can't understand, is why we can't still do that. Why we can't build houses for working people, not you know, people who are down and out. I guess that's a kind of a public housing thing. But this thing next to it of people who have jobs but they can't afford to live in Chicago. Why can't we build them housing?
I agree.
Solve this for me, would you please?
Well, look. Them taxes got to get down lower that people can't afford to live in. You can build a house and you can turn around and raise taxes, and you're going to lose the house. All right? But see, it's the lobbyists that run in Chicago and the union. That's that. You know, we got to attack that head on. Otherwise than that, Chicago is going to be just for the wealthy. You know, and I'm going to use all the influence I possibly can into doing this. All right. Oh, by the way, the audience, go to Keep Up With Me, Willie Wilson, Facebook, and then you can find online. You can keep up with me real time, like you keep up with me.
Trust me, I've done it. Facebook, Willie Wilson. It's easy to find. Well, okay. So anyway, I guess we're kind of out of time here, but you're going to create a PAC, right?
Yeah, because we have to keep up. What other way to do it? You got to have money to advertise the candidate that you're going to run with, going to represent the best interest of your community.
So is this PAC going to throw its influence behind your choice tomorrow?
No, I haven't formed it yet.
But you're going to.
Yeah, I'm going to, right. Tomorrow, my decision is going to be made tomorrow based on the data that we got back at 1:30. I hope you'll be there.
I'm hoping to. I think I'm going to be able to.
Yeah,
it'll be very interesting to see. And then, I mean, are we talking another presidential run here? Because if you are, you got to make a decision pretty quickly.
I don't know. I put it this way: I'm gonna be involved with it. I'm not gonna let anyone come in Chicago, particularly the African American community, just gonna throw that vote behind them. I'm gonna be raising the question. No, you don't get nothing here unless the community negotiate what's in it for them as well. Okay. So I want to be involved in it. If I don't run, I'm gonna be involved in it. You know?
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? Let's leave it there. We'll get you back another time because there's going to be a lot more.
Yeah, I love to come back.
A lot more to talk about. Yeah, and I want to talk about these big issues with you. I like doing it. Okay. Well, good luck tomorrow.
All right, thank you.
And I will make a prediction, okay? This is my prediction.
Okay, all right.
This is nothing else.
All right, okay.
My prediction is he's going with Lightfoot. But I don't know that. I don't have any inside knowledge. I'm just piecing the pieces together.
All right. Thanks. Well, thank you very much. All right. Appreciate you.
We'll talk to you soon. Willie Wilson joining us here on Chicago Newsroom. Don't go away. We'll be right back. We're going to change topics rather dramatically, and we're going to bring Jamal Green in here. So it'll be an interesting conversation. Stay right there for the next 6 seconds.
This is Chicago Newsroom.
See, I told you, we're right back. And here's what we're going to do right now. Jamal Green won't become our mayor this round. In fact, when he walked into the Board of Elections right after Christmas and withdrew formally, that ended his official mayoral campaign. Poof, it's over. But, you know, he's a young guy and he's got a lot of followers and a lot of ideas. And we definitely haven't heard the last of him. In fact, he seems to have moved on pretty quickly. I was in the throngs of curiosity seekers at Navy Pier on Sunday night as Chicago welcomed Bernie Sanders. And then I started seeing all these social media things coming out of Jamal's digital device somewhere there in Navy Pier with some very positive messages about the burn. So as we get ridiculously close to the April 2nd election, I thought we'd invite Jamal back to Chicago Newsroom for a status report. Hey, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. Let's just start there. I mean, why not? Are you feeling the burn?
Am I feeling the burn? So I was a surrogate for Bernie in 2016.
Yeah.
So, you know, he loves me. I love Bernie. And you know, I decided to stick with him this election. I think that he has built the infrastructure and organization to win the nomination this time. And, you know, there are millions and millions of people. Already 1 million people have signed on to pledge to volunteer. Yeah. Hundreds of thousands of people have donated. Like myself, he raised $10 million his first week. I just think that his platform, who he is, who he has been for the last 50 years, has been consistent, and I think he'd be a great president.
My wife and I decided at about 5:45 that we were going to go down there, and you know we were saying it's going to be Bernie Sanders. There'll be a few hundred people there. It's just not going to be that big, and we'll be able to drive right up there. Fortunately, it got started late enough that we were able to get in.
Right.
But I was stunned by the size of that crowd.
I wasn't.
Massive. I know you.
I wasn't. So I introduced rallies. I introduced him at rallies in 2016, I traveled around the country with him, and we had 20,000 people a stadium. So
yeah, well,
it was very
right
powerful.
afterward, I saw the picture of Brooklyn from the day before, which I had not yet seen.
It was huge.
Yeah. Oh my God.
20,000.
Yeah, and something like what, 14,000 here, something like that.
About 14,000 here. Yeah.
So
it was great.
Very good. And I have to say that it sounds to me like it's a little bit less tone deaf this time. It sounds like they're getting something else right, which I think is really important. That the people introducing are people of color.
Yes.
That there's a great deal more diversity just in the ranks.
Yep.
And the other thing, which this can be a two-edged sword, but I didn't think he did it as well as he could, but he did spend a lot of time talking about his own personal history, which is really important.
Really
stuff
important.
About University of Chicago. And,
yes.
A guy like you can appreciate the fact that a guy who was your age 50 years ago was still fighting that fight.
We're still fighting that fight. I mean, I think that's amazing. You know, I'm glad that he opened up more this election and talked about those personal stories, talked about the one of the first sit-ins in the Midwest when at the University of Chicago. Talked about how they had these. He taught me a lesson about. He taught me with this story. I didn't even know nothing about how they used to have these trailers and put black kids from CPS, the Willis wagons, yes,
the Willis wagons. That's from my generation,
and from your generation, and how he was doing, a protest in that. I mean, those stories ring true to us because we're like, wow, and then we can translate that to some of the stuff going on today and say, well, wow, we're protesting schools shutting down.
These black people are starting to protest about the fact that they have 50 kids in a classroom. What are we going to do about this? Oh, we'll just get some old junky wagons and throw them out.
Exactly. That's crazy.
That was, yes,
that was insane.
Now, I have had some experience in broadcasting and public relations in my lifetime, and I would say that my critique of it was that he just ran too long. Where I was standing, which was obviously close to the back of the room, I saw a huge number of people leaving about 10 minutes before it was over. And I'm not saying that they didn't like it. It's just that there were a couple of things. First of all, it's impossible to get off Navy Pier, right? We all know that.
Right.
So you got to get out early.
That's what
right.
I think happened.
Right. But also, it's kind of like he got the message, it was done, and we all knew where he was at. And if we're in favor of Bernie, then we're in favor of Bernie, and that's we've already, so okay, give us a break. It's 10 o'clock, that kind of thing.
Well, Bernie loves to. Bernie can be long-winded. All right.
I could see why. He's whatever.
But people love it. People love it.
He's 70-something years old. He's getting the
Look how many young people are in the crowd that sticks through.
Right.
Right. So I mean, but I think he's just fine tuning. It's early. He's fine tuning his stories and how he wants to push his message out.
So anyway, you're with him for the duration.
I am. And you'll see me on the trail with him.
All right, that's great. Let's talk about the mayor's race, shall we?
We can.
A lot of your issues that you were raising are not really being, at least so far, addressed in this race. I don't really hear serious discussion about police accountability. I'm concerned that a lot of the things that, again, forgive this generation divide garbage that we're doing here, but that your generation is really urgently concerned with. Are being kind of mushed into a general thing about we have to improve the police.
Right.
So are either of the remaining candidates speaking to you?
Not yet. I want to see what happens at the debates before I make my endorsement. But, all we can say is we got to look at their records and we got to look at see if they actually have spoke true to us in the past, and then see what their policies are and how they're going to shape things for the future. Right. We know that both of these women, Lori as well as Tony Preckwinkle, their policy stances are very similar. There's not a huge divide on who they are or what their policies are, I would say. But you look at Lori Lightfoot, and she's someone that has more of a troubled past if you know her like I know her. I'm an activist, so I fought her tooth and nail when she was head of the police boards, and she was cutting off microphones for families, and she was basically treating activists like we weren't nothing, and she was we looked at her as the establishment puppet, you know, and so she had no regard for families getting justice, and there were shootings that she didn't investigate or she justified, and we fought her on that for years. And so there's Toni Preckwinkle, and of course we fought her on several policies like the soda tax, and her, you know, even Joe Berrios and things of that sort. So, you know, both of them are flawed candidates, but we have to make the best decision on who's going to move things forward and make sure that young people have a voice, make sure that we have real police reform, make sure that we address the root causes of violence, and have economic development throughout the city. And we'll just see who's the best for that. I'll be making the decision soon.
Younger, fresher approach versus older and steady hand on the wheel kind of debate?
Well, yeah, you know, I look at, so I'm not, both of them to me, you know, are very similar in a lot of ways, as well as kind of up in age too. So, you know, like I said, we have to hold them accountable. We got to push them in a corner and say, are you going to do this? Are you going to do this? You know, I had a young person at Bernie Sanders rally who was a Lightfoot supporter, right? And I said, well, why do you like Lightfoot? And, you know, she talked about, she's about 20, 25 years old. She talks about affordable housing. She said affordable housing is important to me. We look at Lincoln Yards and we look at all of these big projects. How do we need a mayor who's going to make sure that there's enough affordable housing options in these rich and wealthy neighborhoods that they're building, right? And so that was important to her. And she felt Lori Lightfoot was the person for her. But then we talking about rent control, and we say, all right, well, Lori Lightfoot, she doesn't agree with lifting the ban on rent control. Then she's like, oh, well, Toni says, all right, well, I agree with lifting the ban on rent control. So there's many issues that young people care about. We just got to see who can lead us into the future.
Yeah, you know, for my own part, I have a great deal of admiration. Well, I have a great deal of admiration for both of them. It's not easy to be a politician in Chicago.
Not at all.
It's just not easy. It's a very difficult thing. It's a difficult world to walk through these different, you know, groups of people. But I have great admiration for Toni Preckwinkle for her support of the health system in Cook County, and during her time,
I agree. Many people benefited off of it.
Huge numbers of people were put onto Obamacare and similar kinds of programs. So a lot of people are insured who weren't insured before she came in.
I didn't even know much about county care. Maybe I'm a little bit privileged, but I had some friends who were like, yeah, we got county care, and I was like, what? The Cook County has
a couple 100,000 people have health insurance.
And so that pretty shocked me.
I'm not plumping for her when I say that.
No, I understand.
Because I would say equally that a lot of people, you know, I was in a number of those police accountability task force meetings where young people were, rightly so, standing up and screaming and yelling, "You don't represent me." And one of them that I was at Sullivan, I think it was actually closed down. But yet she came out with a pretty good report. The way I look at it, the way I read it, I thought it was a pretty decent report.
It was a pretty decent report.
And it turned out to be at least the armature around which the consent decree has been built, and there could be real reform.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I think that was it was a good report. I was happy about it. It obviously led the path down to the consent decree, and but you know, things are troubling. You know, on both sides, and so this is a hard decision.
But you're going to pick one publicly.
I'm going to pick one publicly. Like I said, I know both of them. I'm not holding Lori's full pass against her or how she dealt with us. I want to see how she's going to move us forward, and is she capable of changing? When I was 8 years old, you know, just so I can say this, my mom was the mail lady for Toni Preckwinkle.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
And no kidding. Mail lady, you mean like with the mail cart?
Yes, she was her mail carrier, and she delivered her mail to her home, and so.
Oh, you mean U.S. mail?
U.S. mail.
I thought you meant like the person who walks around in the
office.
No.
No. Her U.S. mailing. Yeah. And so you know, so when Toni Preckwinkle would do things like feed the elderly or feed the homeless, my mom would bring me out at a young age, 8, 9 years old, and make me go with Tony Preckwinkle and feed the homeless and things of that sort. So I knew her. That was the first politician that I've ever known as a young boy. But there have been a lot of policy decisions that she has made that made me, of course, fight against her. You know, the Queen Sugar shirts I created. You know, so I was,
remember the Queen Sugar?
You remember
shirts,
Queen Sugar shirts? So you know, I'm very vocal against things that are against our communities, and but like I said, I will not be. I don't have any biases here because I don't have a great solid relationship with either of them.
So is this a lesser of two evils election, or is it something different?
I don't know about lesser two evils. I think both of them are pretty. It depends on how you look at it. They could look leveled out. Depends on how you look at it. You know, Tony Preckwinkle has a lot of flaws. Lori Lightfoot has a lot of flaws. Their policies are pretty similar. They say that they're going to do 90% of the same things. So it's like, well, it's kind of how you look at it. They're kind of leveled out. But you got to just choose who you think is the best for you.
So we don't have that much time. So let's move on to some things like for example, the process for getting on the ballot for mayor.
Horrible.
It was not so great for any of you, I think, but you really got caught in the switches.
Yeah, and I'm going to be doing something about it pretty soon. What I will say is that this process to get on the ballot is all about, it all favors the rich, because you're in a situation where you have to pay tens of thousands of dollars to lawyers. You have to have 3 team members per day, every day, for the duration of your records examinations at the Board of Elections. I mean, it's a very strenuous process because they put the process close to the election. And so it's kind of unfair because while you're going through all of these hearings and records examinations from someone who really just wanted to drag you in because they had the money to do so, you're sucking up a lot of valuable time for you and there are other few team members that are rotating in and out to be knocking on doors, to be campaigning on the streets.
And meanwhile, you need 800 to get on the governor ballot, but 12.
Yeah, you need 5,000. You need 5,000 to get on the governor's ballot. 12,500 for mayor. And so, you don't even need that many to run for president. All right. So this is the stiffest requirement for signatures in the country. Los Angeles, 1,000. New York, 3,500. I mean, this is insane.
You have a really weird situation like Neil Salas Griffin, who ended up using all of his resources.
He used all of his resources
to fight
the system. Still didn't have enough signatures.
Right.
But they let him on a ballot because they said Dr. Willie Wilson has just done some ridiculous things, which he has done. He did it to me. And they said, well, we don't see good faith in him challenging anyone. And they let Neil Salas Griffin on the ballot, even though he had 11,000 signatures.
He had no money left and no time left.
And no time left.
Right.
It was time. It was early voting time. So pretty crazy.
Red light cams, speed cams, that seems to be one of these uniting issues. It's like it doesn't matter if you're white, black, rich, or poor. You've been victimized by these things, right? So, do you see that as being something that, I mean, does that play a role in this election?
It should. Not just red light and camera. I mean, tickets, city stickers, boots, all of that all together. We live in a city where you cannot live in this city without having tickets. There's nobody that drives in Chicago that has not gotten a ticket. And that's not fair, right? You try to do right, you try to park right, you will ultimately find yourself, your sticker expired. Oh, your meter expired, even though we don't own the meters. Oh, this is, you got all these different things where they'll get you some way.
Well, ProPublica and WBEZ did some just absolutely beautiful
especially
reporting
in the urban community.
Yes, and how I actually went to one of their symposiums the other night at John Marshall Law School about it because I'm really getting interested in this. And I mean, you could go on for hours about this, but in one particular case, they put a map up on the screen, and there are a couple of professors who I'm hoping to get on the show in the next few weeks, one from UIC, one from Northwestern, who've done this work. Put the map up on the screen, and the city will say, look at this. The majority of the cameras in Chicago are in what we would call white wards, right? The cameras in the black wards really are not, there aren't that many.
Right.
But when you do the research and you put people on that map and you see how many people live in adjacency to those cameras, there are fewer white people next to cameras than there are black people because it's so spread out, right?
Right.
And you get to this situation where you get a ticket, and we've had this whole discussion here at this table a couple of times. Sure. You get a ticket, and if you can't pay that ticket, God help you, because it just starts.
They'll take everything.
It just ramps up, and
eventually
you lose your car.
You lose your car, you lose your license,
and then you lose your job because you can't.
I got a friend who lost his car. He owed thousands and tickets. His car value was probably about $12,000. He just bought a Chrysler for like 2012, and he didn't have the money to go and get the tickets. Took too long, and hey, they got rid of the car.
And this is what we're doing to our own citizens. This is what our government is doing to our citizens.
And it's not fair. How do you expect people to work? How do you expect people to pay taxes?
But we're doing it for the children. Remember, we're doing it to keep the children safe.
Please, it's crazy.
Okay. Progressive politics, whatever that is, I don't know how to describe it, but we're seeing. I mean, I think we were all. I know I was, maybe you weren't, but I was shocked by the blue wave. I didn't expect it. I didn't think it was going to come.
Right.
And it's really begun to affect almost everything. I mean, every day now we're seeing the House doing some thing. And it appears to me that it might have it kind of splashed into the Chicago election a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think that so I don't believe in this whole blue wave thing. I mean, I think that.
I'm not sure I do either, but something's in the air.
Something is in the air. Well, I think something more in the air are Black women or women of color. That's more in the air, I think, in America right now, because that's who's taking over these positions. And white men like yourself, and even black men, they're going out of style. So soon,
out of style a long time before this, buddy. Yeah.
So soon it'll be women president and women governors, and they'll shift the dynamic
so
in
here
this country.
You are, you're already out of style.
We're already out of style. Black men, we got to get in and get where we fit in. But at the end of the day, progressive politics is what's in. But Bernie Sanders did that.
Yeah.
All right. You gotta. I mean, we gotta give him credit. Yeah. That's why I say he earned this presidency, because nobody was talking about $15 minimum wage. When I was on the campaign trail in 2016, they were telling me, young man, you're going to put businesses out of...
Calm down, young man.
Calm down, young man. Free college education.
That can't be done.
Young man, you're trying to put us
let's go for $9.
Right. Let's go for
All right. Okay. Look, we got to cut this off because of the time. But this is the thing I've wanted to ask you all day.
Yeah.
I'm giving you the assignment to do Rahm Emanuel's exit interview. What's your first question for Rahm Emanuel?
What is
As
my
he sits
first...
down across from you and you want to know, why didn't he run again?
What's your first question that I would have for Rahm? I mean, my first, I got many. But I think my first question I would ask is, what was the worst thing you've done as mayor?
That's an unfair question. Come on.
No, I mean, it's not unfair. I mean, I think, what is one thing that you think you could have done differently?
Okay,
all right, you want to do better? That's a better question.
That's a better question.
If you had one decision that you made wrong, what would it be?
Yeah.
And I want to hear what that is. I think I won't be Laquan McDonald, but we'll see.
All right. Well, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. I hope we get back again and again. We'll see what happens. All right.
Time to let's see what kind of wave we got going on in the future.
Jamal Green joining us here, a former mayoral campaign, and he's trying to decide, and it's still trying to decide who he's going to vote for, and he'll let us know. You're watching Chicago Newsroom, which is produced deftly and oftenly and every week week by David Resnick, and we appreciate all that Uncle David did. He says here, thanks to our producer. Oh, no, that's, yeah. David, thanks. And we'll see you again next week with another show. Probably be talking about some politics thing, I'm sure. Don't forget, go here to get all of our archives. You can see the show anytime you want. Ken Davis, next week. Bye for now.